Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Psycho, and I've got another Walking Dead video for you all today. This one is going to be pretty interesting, and the topic of this video is actually going to be over Greg Nicotero talking about sadistic saviors in addition to Negan and Season 7. Now, all of this is from an article from Entertainment Weekly, also known as EW.com. This was originally tweeted out by Dalton Ross. He's one of the writers there, and he tweets on Twitter a lot about The Walking Dead. So if you do want to see more news in the future, make sure to follow Dalton Ross on Twitter. It's just at Dalton Ross, and he's really been tweeting out a lot of Walking Dead news and images lately. I just figured I would let you guys in the loop on that. Now let's get right into the article. I'm just going to read some of this article off for you guys and then give some of my thoughts out there as well. The article states, "There's safety in numbers. Rick and his gang learned that the hard way in the Walking Dead Season 6 finale as they kept coming across even bigger groups of saviors every time they tried a new road to make it to Hilltop. Negan's army not only has the numbers, but as executive producer Greg Nicotero tells us, they have a legend and aura about them as well, which is often as important. The saviors, as sadistic as they may appear, they have a system that works for them," says Nicotero. "Yeah, they effed up and they're a little weird, but they've been doing this for a long time and they have a very large group. It's not like it's a pocket of 10 or 12 people. They have a good thing going, and the most interesting thing about them for me is there's mythos involved with them. It's like, you hear about this guy Negan just like you hear about this guy Rick, and you hear a lot about these people. There's a lot of that involved in Season 7. For Negan and the Saviors, it is that threat and reputation that keeps these communities under control and in line. It's the mystery and the word of mouth that is spread along the countryside about these people, because that's just as much a character point as it is meeting these guys is hearing about them," says Nicotero. "Oh, I heard there's this guy Negan, and you've got to give him half your stuff or he kills somebody just to prove his point. You know, I think that is as interesting as actually seeing the inner workings of how these places exist." In a cruel twist of fate, Nicotero also points out that it was the reputation that Rick was building up that put him under Negan's radar to begin with. Negan even says to Rick in the finale, "Oh, so you're the guy that went out there, and you're the guy that took out my guys, and you're the guy that did this." So Negan has heard of Rick. Rick has recently heard of Negan. So there's a little sort of caste system with this castle over here and this castle over here, and these guys have heard about them. And how these castles or communities continue to interact under Negan's law is key to Season 7. The nice thing about this season is that you will get the chance to see some of these inner workings of these different worlds and these communities and really get a chance to see how much they know about the rest of the world, says Nicotero. I think that's really a good theme for Season 7, which is, nobody really knows what the world has in store for them out there. So the audience, just like these people, go through these journeys. That's basically where the article ends right there, but I just thought that was pretty interesting, and I do know that they mentioned some of the things that we are already aware of within this show. However, just to hear some different perspectives from Greg Nicotero, I thought that was pretty interesting, and I really do like the point that he says Season 7, the theme of that season, will be all of these characters and communities trying to work together under Negan's law, and how they will react to that. I've mentioned this once before, but that's also what Ross Marquand, who plays Aaron in The Walking Dead, he said pretty much the same thing, and I'm not sure if Scott M. Gimple has said the same thing before, but for some reason, I don't know if this is true, and I've said this before as well, but I think Scott M. Gimple said something on Talking Dead about the theme being over the death, and how people will handle that for Season 7. Now, like I said, I don't know, I haven't watched that episode in a long time of Talking Dead, so please just forget what I said if I am wrong about this. But if that is true, I don't think the theme of a season should be a reaction to how a character dies. Of course, it should be interwoven into the larger story, but there should be much more going on there other than a reaction to some character dying. Of course, it will propel other characters to make certain decisions based on that, but I don't necessarily believe that death alone should be the whole season's focus. Once again, just disregard all of that if he didn't say that. I'm not sure, so don't take my word on it. But I do like the fact that Greg Nicotero and Ross Marquand are talking about this, because I believe it's a good point, and that's how the story is going to change throughout the season, because this death will have that impact that will propel these communities to work together or work against each other in different ways. I also really enjoyed when Greg Nicotero talked about the mystery behind Negan and the Saviors, and I think that's a really good point. We saw a lot of that in Season 6, especially at Hilltop, and as Rick and the group were trying to figure out who Negan and the Saviors were, how many people they had, what did their group consist of, where they lived, and all of those things in combination. You heard about this guy known as Negan, but you never really saw him until the finale. You just saw his men and you heard people talk about him, but you don't see Negan until that final climax moment when you knew the wrong moves were made. I think Greg really hit the nail on the head when he was talking about that, and I think there's a lot of mystery behind it as well, such as they have this psychological warfare with the whistling. I really love the whistling. I've dedicated, I think, like 2 videos to the whistling just because I think it is such a cool intimidation effect. And there's a lot of mystery behind that whistling as well, because you hear them in the woods, and you know there's a lot of them, but as you hear the whistling getting louder and more whistles chiming in, you know there's a ton of people in the woods, but you can't see them. I think that's an awesome addition with the psychological warfare that I think they added in there, and it adds mystery to the Saviors as well, in my opinion. Anyways, I just thought this was a pretty cool article. Of course, they did talk about a lot of things we knew already, but they also gave some different perspectives to what Season 7 will be like, and Greg analyzed the situations of Season 6 as well. This is pretty much all I wanted to talk about today in this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, please make sure to like this video to show some support. It always helps out an absolute ton, and it really does support this channel and future Walking Dead videos. Thank you guys once again for watching. I really appreciate it. Peace out.